Alright, I know I'm really late to the party, but hey, at least I made it before the sequel drops, so here goes nothing. Now, I don't say this often, but the F1 movie, that was actually insane. Like, I genuinely felt like I was strapped inside that carbon fiber death pod, brake dust in my eyes, just waiting for the inevitable radio message, okay mate, box. What really caught me off guard though, wasn't just the sound or the visuals, it was the way the crashes were handled. They didn't just toss in random flips and explosions like it's Fast and Furious Monaco drift, they made it feel real, like brutally real. The way the drivers reacted, the way the cars disintegrated mid-center, and the very real sense that you're one mistake away from genuine disaster, it all added this raw tension that just stuck with me. And honestly, that's what made the whole film feel alive. The danger wasn't exaggerated, it was lifted straight from real-world chaos. So good, in fact, that halfway through watching it, I was like, wait a minute, I've seen that crash before. And not just in a game, I mean real races, real incidents, actual F1 history. That's when I realized this wasn't just fiction sprinkled with a few facts. This was a love letter to the chaos of F1, built on some of the wildest moments we've actually witnessed. So yeah, today's video is all about those real-life F1 crashes that inspired the movie magic. Let's dive into it. Alright, let's get into the crash that basically wrote Sonny Hayes' entire trauma arc. And no, this one isn't just inspired by real events in the vague Hollywood way where they slap a helmet on someone and call it realism. This was directly based on Martin Donnelly's absolutely horrifying crash, a crash so brutal it makes most F1 incidents look like bumper cars at a theme park. Brad Pitt confirmed it himself. They modeled Sonny Hayes' backstory on Donnelly's crash, not by using the real footage, because honestly, the original clip is so graphic and haunting, it doesn't need a movie edit. Instead, the film recreated the whole thing from scratch, and even then, they had to tone it down just a little, because in reality, that crash was straight up nightmare fuel. So here's what happened. Lotus, in their infinite wisdom at the time, was running a Lamborghini V12, a heavy monster of an engine. And to try to stay competitive, they did what any mid-tier team running out of money and ideas would do. They started shaving weight from the car like they were preparing it for a keto diet. The problem? You can't just strip a car down and expect it to survive a 150+ mile/hour crash. On top of that, they modified the cockpit to better fit Donnelly, but those changes left weak points, which eventually became the reason everything went sideways. Literally. During that practice session, something in the suspension or chassis gave way, and the Lotus veered off track and slammed into the barriers at full speed. The car didn't just crumple, it broke in half. It disintegrated. It exploded into bits, like someone hit the disassemble button mid-race. And when the smoke cleared, Donnelly wasn't in the wreckage. He was on the track, still strapped into his seat, unconscious, his legs twisted, broken, and horrifyingly exposed. One of his femurs was sticking out of his leg in full view of everyone watching. That's not just a crash. That's a life-changing, career-ending, holy hell how did he survive moment that would traumatize any driver, let alone the medics, the team, and everyone watching from the pit wall. And that's exactly the moment the movie decided to anchor Sonny Hayes' backstory around. Because this wasn't just about losing a race, it was about a man losing everything in one instant. The dream, the machine, the body, all shattered. And the film doesn't flinch from that reality. It uses that moment, not just to shock you, but to explain who Sonny is and why he's so broken, so cautious, so full of unresolved fear wrapped in fake confidence. It's a brilliant callback to a moment in real F1 history that too many people forget. And in doing so, the movie gives that crash and Donnelly's survival the weight it truly deserves. So now we get to that scene where it's raining at Monza, which already means chaos is pretty much guaranteed. But no, Joshua Pearce, our golden boy, decides this is the perfect time to go full I am speed. And he's now locked in on Max Verstappen like he's got a personal vendetta to settle. They're going wheel to wheel, heading into Parabolica. He hits the outer chicane curb, and the car just launches, does a full-on flip mid-air, and ends up crashing into the trees. Not the barriers, not the gravel. He ends up in the trees. This wasn't just dramatic for the sake of it. It's actually based on real-life horror from 2019 when F3 driver Alex Peroni had an absolutely terrifying airborne crash at Monza. He hit one of those sausage curbs and his car just took off, legit went flying. It flipped, rolled, and eventually crash landed with such force that Peroni suffered a fractured vertebra and a concussion. The only reason that incident isn't talked about more is because he somehow walked away alive, but it easily could have gone much worse. The film nails the chaos of that moment. And honestly, props to them for not dumbing it down, because that's what real motorsport danger looks like when you don't over-dramatize it with explosions or Hollywood slow-mo. Just a real car at real speed, getting launched like a paper aeroplane and everyone watching it holding their breath. Now, continuing that absolute chaos of Joshua Pearce's Monza crash, his machine goes straight into the outer fences and kaboom, the whole thing just burst into flames. And in that wild mess, Sonny Hayes, being the movie hero he is, slams the brakes, hops out, and actually drags Joshua out of a burning car like he's in some Hollywood action sequence. Now I get it, it's a film, and yes, it's overly dramatized because let's be honest, trying to pull a driver out of a car that's literally on fire while still wearing a fire-resistant suit that's supposed to not let that happen, yeah, a bit of a stretch. But hey, good VFX, right? But behind that scene, there's a very real inspiration. Probably one of the most terrifying crashes of the modern era in Formula One. We're talking about the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix, when Romain Grosjean, in a Haas of all things, had a high-speed crash on the opening lap, slammed straight into the metal barriers, and the car just split in half like it was made of paper mache. The front half of the chassis went through the barrier, the rear half stayed on the track, and everything was instantly engulfed in flames because the fuel tank, or at least part of the fuel system, got ruptured in the impact. And then came that moment. The moment where the entire F1 world froze because the fire kept raging. People started fearing the worst. The man literally walked out of the flames like an F1 Terminator. His gloves were scorched, his hands burned, his helmet visor blackened, but the rest of him, safe. Thanks to the halo device that prevented his head from getting crushed by the barrier, and the incredible fireproofing that gave him just enough time to escape. That crash changed F1's safety narrative for good. It reminded everyone, even with all the tech and regulations, racing is still dangerous, and sometimes you're only one split second away from the unthinkable. So while the movie version turned it into an epic hero moment, the real-life story of Grosjean's survival is a whole different level of spine-chilling reality, and a major reason why you'll never hear anyone complain about the halo again. So, was this movie actually worth the hype, or did Netflix just drop another motorsport soap opera with F1 branding slapped on top like a Red Bull sticker on a Honda Civic? Honestly, yes. Definitely yes. If you walked in expecting some ultra-accurate frame-by-frame biopic of Formula One history, then you clearly forgot this is Hollywood, not the FIA archives. But if you came in ready to see some dramatic storylines, surprisingly decent performances, some seriously intense crash recreations, and let's be real, Brad Pitt actually looking like he belongs in a garage with a headset on, then it absolutely delivers. But that's not the point. It's emotional, it's cinematic, and it actually respects the spirit of F1 without turning into Fast and Furious on steroids. And for longtime fans, seeing real-life moments like Grosjean's fireball or Peroni's airborne horror reimagined with that much production value, even if dramatized, still hits different. You get goosebumps not just from the visuals, but because you remember where you were when those crashes happened. It makes you care, and that's rare.